In this video, we're going to talk about the Celpip writing performance standard. This is what the raters are using to check your work. So each time you submit your writing task 1 and your writing task 2, the raters are using these standards to make sure that you've done everything you are supposed to do. I've had experience of test takers telling me that I know English. I write very well. I've written a lot of emails, a lot of essays, but I took the test, but my writing is still poor. What could be the problem? The real problem is you do not know what the raters are looking for. You do not understand the marking criteria standard. Yes, it's sure you could be a very excellent writer, but unless you know what the raters are looking for, how would you give it to them? That's why I would always say the writing performance standard is the most important part of your writing class. So please pay attention and try to understand each of these factors or each of these categories that the raters are looking for. You could just be your own rater. Yes. At the end of the day, you've understood what the raters are looking for. You can critically rate your own work, look at your own work like a rater. Now, this writing performance standard is divided into 4 categories, and we're going to break them down in this video. The 4 categories are content and coherence, vocabulary, readability, and task fulfillment. Each of these categories are divided into 4 factors. That makes it a total of 16. It might sound like a lot, but trust me, they are not a lot. They're as easy as can be. Once you've understood the marking criteria standard, you will remember them as easily as possible. It's not that difficult and it's not complicated. Now let's start with the first category, which is the content and coherence. Under these categories, the raters are watching you using 4 factors, and they are number of ideas, quality of ideas, examples and supporting details, and organization of ideas. And they are content and coherence, vocabulary, readability, and task fulfillment. Under these 4 categories are 4 factors each, making it a total of 16 factors. Right now, it may seem like a lot, but really it is not a lot. The moment you understand these things, you are good to go. So I'm going to walk you through one after the other. The first factor on the content and coherence is number of ideas. But before that, what are the raters looking for under the number of ideas? Here it says, this category measures how smoothly and effectively the ideas flow together to form a meaningful and coherent whole. What does this mean? The raters are determining how well your ideas are organized and developed. That is all the raters are looking at. How well your ideas are organized and developed. Now let's start with the first one, which is number of ideas. When test takers hear number of ideas, they often wonder, how many ideas should I have? Well, there isn't really any direct answer to that question because the raters are not really counting how many ideas are in your work. What they are checking is, are your ideas different or are they similar? So for example, in your writing task 2, if you've got 3 reasons to support your option or your preferred option, make sure that the reasons are different, not similar. If they are similar, consider merging them together as one and think of something else that is completely different. What about the quality of ideas? In this factor, what the raters are checking is if you have high level or high quality ideas. For example, the question says, your manager is surveying your opinion about eating food at desk. Recently, there's been a lot of argument as some people think that eating food at desk is unhygienic and it attracts insects, rodents, and mouse. Now your manager is asking your opinion. Now you prefer that everyone should be mandated to eat only in the kitchen for the following reason. Number one, eating food at desk is unhygienic, as this would attract rodents, mice, and insects. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, you copied from the question. In that case, that isn't your own idea. So you're going to lose point on the quality of ideas. So make sure your ideas are high level scoring response. It doesn't have to be so complicated or so difficult. It could be something simple, not just something vague or something very cliche. Try to think a little bit outside of the box. The next factor is examples and supporting detail. If possible, try your very best to include examples throughout your response. So again, for example, in your writing task 2, be sure to include an example to support one of your points. Your example doesn't have to be something elaborate again. It could be something as simple as, for instance, the other day, one of the staff members spilled coffee over important office document. If this law has been in place, she would be having coffee only in the kitchen and this would not have happened. You just give an example. Your example doesn't have to be so complicated. Something simple, something ordinary. The fact that you are including an example in your work means you are targeting at least one more point in the scoring or the writing performance standards. Again, your example doesn't have to be real life scenario. It could be something you made up, something you just thought of. It doesn't have to be real. No rater is going to check if this thing she said really happened or this thing she said in China really did happen. No one is going to check all of that. So it doesn't have to be real life scenarios. Just make sure you are including an example in your writing task 1 and your writing task 2. The final factor under content and coherence is organization of ideas. Basically, what this means is making sure your response is organized. It is easy to read. So, the easiest way to explain this is to use the number of questions. Take, for example, your writing task 1. If you're asked to do 3 things or you have 3 prompts to respond to in your writing task 1, make sure that all 3 points are answered in their own paragraphs. Each question should be answered in its own paragraph. In your writing task 2, if you've got 3 reasons to support your option or to explain your option, make sure that each of those reasons are explained in their own paragraph. The rule of thumb is we don't want to mix the point together and we don't want to go back and forth in our response or in our answers. So let's say the question is about teenagers. There is a question said, recently some group of teenagers have been meeting in a park around you. Write an email to the local government chairman and your email should do the following things. Number 1, tell us where you live. Number 2, explain the problem and how it affects your life. Number 3, suggest ways that this problem can be solved. Now, if you want your response to be organized, paragraph 1 should focus on explaining where you live or tell us about where you live. Paragraph 2 should focus on the problem and how it affects your life. Paragraph 3 should focus on your suggestion on how this problem can be solved. There is no point to include anything about the problem in paragraph number 3 because you've done that in paragraph 2. There's really no point bringing it back to paragraph 3. If you mention anything about the problem or how it affects your life in paragraph number 3, it means you are going back and forth in your ideas and you'll be losing point under organization of ideas. So again, the rule of thumb is 1 point per paragraph. Once you're done talking about 1 point, you move on to the next one. Do not go back and do not introduce it to the second paragraph. So let's assume that on the test day, I've answered question number 1, which is tell us about where you live or provide information about where you live. I've also answered question number 2, which is explain the problem and how it affects your life. Now I am in paragraph number 3, which is suggest ways that this problem can be solved. And then I remember something that I could have added to the point. Tell us about where you live or provide information about where you live. What should you do in that case? I'm going to give you a few moments to think. A, B, or C? You are absolutely correct. All you have to do is go back to the first paragraph and add that information there. Do not introduce it to paragraph number 3. If it is clearly impossible for you to add it to the first paragraph, all you need to do is throw that idea away. You don't want to lose point under organizing your ideas. Now, let's move on to the second category, which is vocabulary. Under this dimension, this category assesses how well test takers use vocabulary, idioms, and phrases to make their ideas understandable. And under this category, we have 4 factors: word choice, suitable use of words and phrases, range of words and phrases, precision, and accuracy. We're going to merge them together. So when it comes to word choice, what the raters are checking is if the words you are using are appropriate for that social context. Sometimes we choose words that are actually correct. In all honesty, these words are actually correct in the context that you use them. But is it socially appropriate or socially acceptable? That is something you should consider. Is it appropriate for that social context? Otherwise, you might be using the right word for the wrong situation. Now, some students that I know start studying the dictionary prior to their Celpip exams, learning big words, strange words, unfamiliar words. Trust me, guys, in as much as you want to showcase the level of your vocabulary, you really don't need a lot of unfamiliar words. The raters don't like it when you use too many ambiguous phrases or unfamiliar words. Yes, showcase the level of your vocabulary by using different range of words and phrases, suitable words and phrases, but not using unfamiliar or very, very big words. So under suitable use of words and phrases and the range of words and phrases, basically they mean the same thing. You don't want to be repeating the same expression over and over again. You want to use as many words as possible, as many phrases as possible. What that means is if there is a particular word or phrase in your question and you have to repeat that expression or that word throughout your response, please try to use different words, synonyms, and paraphrases. So rather than always saying employees, 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 employees should be required to eat only in the kitchen, employees this, employees that, consider using words like colleagues, staff members, co-workers, just different words, different variety of words to showcase your level of vocabulary that you know new words. Again, remember, it doesn't have to be very complicated words. For example, these days, everybody says, how are you? That's what everyone says. If I want to go a little advanced, I wouldn't say, how are you? Instead, I would say, how's it going? Howdy. And instead of saying, I am fine, I am fine, I am fine, I could say something like, I am doing okay, never been better, I'm on cloud 9. So those are different ways you can showcase the level of your vocabulary. So rather than copy and paste, use your own words and your own phrases. And the final factor here is precision and accuracy. So what was the precision? Basically, it just means to be precise. Be precise. For example, the question says, explain the problem and how it affects your life. And my response is, well, recently, a lot of teenagers come to the park at night and they're very noisy. Again, that is what was mentioned directly in the question. What are questions that someone would have for me, the person reading this email? What are some questions that the person would have? Without answering those questions, the person might not act on my email. Those are the kind of things I want to include in my response. So instead of saying they always come at night and make a lot of noise, I want to be specific or be precise. I could say something like, recently, the teenagers show up every night at around 9 p.m. and they stay late until the evening, sometimes after midnight or even up to 2 a.m. The person reading already has a better picture of the situation. And when you say they are usually loud, someone might just conclude parks is not supposed to be quiet. Kids are usually very loud. But when you precise by saying something like they play loud music or loud musical instruments that are abnormal, actually you can hear them even if you are 20 miles away. Exaggerating, but yeah, you can hear this sound even when you're 20 miles away. The person who is reading your email now understand, okay, this is not just the normal regular noise that kids make. This is out of the ordinary. So rather than being vague or giving a very vague response, try to be specific, be precise. It even helps you to develop your ideas better. So the rule of thumb for this point is ask yourself, if this was in real life, are there questions that the person receiving this email would have for me in order for them to be able to work on my email? If there are questions that this person would have for you, please include them in your response. It means you are not precise enough. So precision and accuracy is very, very important. Now, let us move on to the third category, which is readability. This category measures how intelligible and fluent the test taker's writing is. Intelligible and fluent. Basically, what this means is if someone reads your work, will they understand what you are saying? Is it clear? Is it simple enough for someone to understand what you are saying, what you're writing? Now, the first factor here is format and paragraphing. What is format and paragraphing? You know that the Celpip writing is strictly computer based. There is no pen and paper version. So how your work appears on the screen matters a lot. It's very, very important how your work appears on the screen. I'm going to show you some example on how your work should appear on the screen using a level 12 test taker's response. Now, if you take a look at what is on my screen, at first glance, it is easy for you to tell how many paragraphs are here. And the work looks so beautiful on the screen. If you notice, all the paragraphs are on the same line, and there is a space in between each paragraph, a consistent space. So this is how your work should appear on the screen. From your greeting to your sign up, they should all be on the same line. Beautiful and easy to navigate. So let's assume the raters ran through your work the first time and then they needed to go check something in the second paragraph or in the second point or the second reason you gave. The rater should know exactly which paragraph should I go to get that clarification. They will know it should be in paragraph number 2 because your work is well organized. So make sure that your work is beautiful and it appears well on the screen. So that is the first one, format and paragraphing. The second is connectors and transitions. Do you know what they are? Connectors and transition are words that we use to link ideas within a sentence, within a paragraph, and between paragraphs. They are words like however, on the other hand, in addition, firstly, subsequently. For instance, there are a lot of transition words that you can choose from. Actually, there's a list of transition words that you can choose from, or you can even ask Google, go on your browser and type list of transition words and how you should use them. There are so many. Take, for example, listen to this sentence. For example, I want you to listen or pay attention to this sentence. I would prefer that everyone should be required to eat only in the kitchen for the following reasons. This option projects a professional image to visiting clients. Good reason, right? What about if I write it this other way? I would prefer that everyone should be required to eat only in the kitchen for the following reasons. First of all, That's more beautiful. That sounds more better. First of all, this option projects a professional image to visiting clients. And I go on, I explain it, I talk about it. Once I am done with my first reason and I'm about to start a second reason, of course, which should be in a second paragraph, I'm going to use a transition word to tell the readers, okay, I am done with my first reason. Now I am moving on to reason number two. Well, they are still connected. I'm still talking about the same thing. So I am going to use a transition word to connect my paragraphs. Words like in addition or furthermore or secondly, words like that. Secondly, I give my second reason. I talk about it, I explain it. And when it is time to give my third paragraph or my third reason, I'll say the same thing again, which is thirdly or finally or conclusively, however I want to say it, I will introduce a new transition word. So it just makes your work beautiful and readable, and someone can just follow through and connect your ideas. So make sure that throughout your writing task one and your writing task two, you are using enough transition words. Know the different transition words and how to use them. The next factor here is grammar and sentence structure. Of course, we're not going to talk about this because I expect or assume that the fact that you are taking a Celpip preparation class means you already know English. Try to make sure that your grammar is correct and accurate. So during your practices, you can always check to see if your grammar is correct. There is the app I find helpful, the app called Grammarly. You can use it, download the Grammarly app and add it to your keyboard. Disclaimer, this is not an advert. It's just an app I find helpful, so I am recommending it to you. So download the Grammarly app and add it to your keyboard. Each time you're sending a message or you're just making random tweets or you're writing, Grammarly tells you when there are some grammatical errors. It can tell you one grammatical error spotted, two errors spotted, three errors spotted. Always check the errors. And Grammarly doesn't only tell you that there are errors spotted, it also offers correction. Make sure you check the correction. That is the only way you're going to avoid making the same mistake again. If you don't check the correction or you don't take note of the correction, you will keep making the same mistake. Then you rather just dump the app. It's not working for you. So make sure your grammar is correct. In sentence structure, we just wanted to use a variety of sentence structure. Simple, compound, complex. I'm sure you know what that means. Simple sentence, I am a boy. Very short. Compound, I am a boy and she is a girl. Two sentences joined together. Complex, two or more sentences joined together. So you don't want to be using only short sentence, 3 words, only simple sentence. She's a girl. I went there. She came here. No. Use longer sentences as well as short sentences. A variety of sentences. But make sure you avoid run-on sentence. Homework for you. What is run-on sentence? Go browse it. Go check it out. Go look it out. The final factor here is spelling and punctuation. Good news for you. Up, 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 up. News. Celpip is the one and only English language proficiency exams that has a spell check. You heard me. Tell your friends. Yes, Celpip is the only English language proficiency exams that has a spell check. How does it work? Don't get me wrong, spell check is not autocorrect. Do you know the difference? What is spell check? What is autocorrect? Did you get it right? Maybe, maybe not. So I'm going to help you. Spell check warns you when your spelling is wrong. Simply put, it warns you when your spelling is wrong. So if I spell the word, let's say, interesting, and I mix it up somehow, or I spell the word individual and I mix it up somehow, there will be a red line underneath the word warning me that my spelling is wrong. So all I have to do is to right click your mouse. It's going to drop down 3 options that are very similar. All you need to do is to click on the correct one. You can tell what the correct one is. You know English, you know spelling. That's why you're taking Celpip. You can tell what the correct one is. So right click your mouse, and it's gonna give you, or it's gonna drop down three options. Just click the one that is correct. You wouldn't know when you're gonna need this. Just the other day, I was struggling to spell the word organized. Oh my God, how do I spell this word? How do I? Da, da, da? Yes. And there is some anxiety that comes with the exam situation. So you may struggle to spell some words. So take advantage of it. But remember again, it's not autocorrect. Autocorrect automatically corrects your spelling. Celpip doesn't automatically correct it. And only once you tell you a lot, your spelling is wrong. So use it. And then punctuation. For when it comes to punctuation, you don't really need to start studying all the 1001 punctuation. You don't need to start studying all the 1001 punctuation marks that are out there in the world. No way. Just learn how to use the basic ones. Period, apostrophe, quotation mark, question marks, comma, the very basic ones. Basically, those are the ones you're gonna need. I don't think you need those very, very complicated ones. So be sure that you're using punctuation. The simpler, the better. Now we've come to the final part, or the final category, which is the task fulfillment. Again, let's check what the raters are checking. This category considers how well the content of the response addresses the task requirements. In other words, have test takers understood the instructions and done everything they were asked to do? Have you understood the instructions and done everything you were asked to do? Basically, simply put, did you answer all the questions? Now, let's look at the factors under this category. The first is relevance. Relevance. Now, when it comes to relevance, it just means not including irrelevant detail. Just make sure you're answering the question. Always ask yourself, this information I am including, does it relate to the question? Does it relate to the background information? Am I diverting? Am I answering the question? Just make sure that you are answering the question. Let's take a look at this example. Your friend is bored tonight and needs some advice on what he can do to stay busy. Give your friend some advice on things he can do. And now you started by saying, "Hi, David. It's sad and unfortunate to know that you are so bored tonight. And unfortunately, I cannot be there to keep you company. And that is because my mom is having a party tonight and she's invited guests from all over the place. Guess what? Remember my uncle I told you about, the one that lives abroad? He actually flew all the way from Australia to attend this party. This is one of like the biggest party that my mom has ever organized. It has, and I'm currently saving food for this. Anyways, you said you are bored tonight. I have a few suggestions that could help you. Why not take a stroll around your neighborhood? Maybe you can find one or two people to talk to, or read some books. Now, the question is, did I answer the question? I did. Was all the information relevant? They weren't. Can you tell me some things that were irrelevant? I'm going to give you some time to think. Yes, those were all irrelevant. Everything I said about the party were irrelevant. Now, what about if I do it this way? Hi, David. It's sad to hear that you're bored today. Unfortunately, I really cannot be there to spend time with you like we would normally hang out. And this is because my mom is having a party and I am quite busy today. Well, I have a few suggestions that could work out for you. First of all, there's this movie I saw on Netflix. I think you might really like it. Like everyone is making a fuss about the movie right now. Maybe you should jump on the bandwagon. The title is, or another thing that could work could be taking a stroll around your neighborhood. You know how you find a lot of people walking their dogs? You might just find one or two people to talk to, and before you know it, the evening is gone and it's time to go to bed. Now, did I make mention of the party? I did. I talked about it. It's a way of developing my ideas. Or did I go on and on rambling and rambling about the party? No way. I just mentioned it and came back to the task. So always ask yourself, these information I am giving, are they relevant? If they are not relevant, take it out. Please note, the question type I just used is for Celpip speaking, not writing. All right? Celpip doesn't really ask you to write emails like that. It's usually formal email or semi-formal email. The next factor here is completeness. Just like the name implies, have you answered all the questions? For example, if the question says, complain about multiple problems at a grocery store, and you only write one, you haven't answered the question. Or the example we used earlier on, the number 2 question, which was explain the problem and how it affects your life. That is a 2-in-1 question in one part. So if you answered only the problem, like explain the problem, and you did not talk about how it affects your life, you haven't really completed this task. You haven't completed it. So you're going to lose point on the completeness. So the key is answer every part of the question fully and completely. And one thing that could help you to do this is to make sure you really read the instructions carefully. Read the instructions and be sure to understand the instructions. And the third factor is tone. I like this one. For test takers who are unfamiliar with Canadian culture, they often worry about tone, but really there is no secret to it. The trick is common sense and politeness. Really, Canada is one country that I would say they value respect, deep respect. They value respect and politeness. So regardless of what kind of email you are writing, even if it's an email of complaints, be sure to be polite at all times. Be very careful of the kind of language you use. Don't use rude expressions like, you better come fix this or else. Want to avoid expressions like that. Be respectful and polite throughout your response. Tone also refers to how you address your email. For example, if you're writing an email to your boss, write an email to your boss. In Canada, we wouldn't say, dear sir, because it's our boss. We know him. Even if the person is your superior, in Canada, we refer to them using their first name. So I'm not going to say dear sir or madam or dear Mr. David. I would rather say, hi, David. Hi, Marshall, because he's my boss. Even if he is my superior, is my boss. I'm going to use the first name to address them. Tone also refers to the kind of expressions I use throughout my response. And finally, we have the word count. Of course, the instruction is write about 150 to 200 words. That is the instruction. However, if you are aiming for a CLB 9 and higher, please stay close to 200. This is very important. If you want a CLB 9 or higher, stay close to 200. If you want a CLB 5, 6, and 7, okay, you can write 150, 160, 170, but I do not recommend that. Staying close to 200 ensures that you fully develop your ideas, you've completely answered all the questions, you've included examples, you've been precise in your response. Stay close to 200. So 180 and above. Now, Celpip has a 10% leeway. I'm just telling you for knowledge sake. You don't have to practice it, which means you can write as low as 135 and as high as 220. So if you write 135, it's okay, but 134, you will be penalized. And you can write as much as 220, but 221, you will be penalized. Well, please stay within the word count. It is safer to do that. So stay within 180 and 200. If you go a little above 200, it's okay. 205, 204, 210. Well, just try. Try as much as you can to stay within the word count. And the beautiful thing is there is a word counter appearing on your screen. So you don't have to worry about if you need to manually count the words. The word counter is there. Just make sure you're keeping your eyes on the timer and on the word count as well. So this is the scoring performance standard that raters are using to rate you. There are a few things you can actually just naturally get here. Like there's some things you can naturally take. without stress. Let's try to figure them out. Look with me. Let's talk about format and paragraphing. Even if I'm writing a whole bunch of rubbish, I want to make sure that my bunch of rubbish is well organized, like it's appearing nicely on the screen. One paragraph for one bunch of rubbish. I'm just kidding. One paragraph for one thing, another for one thing, another for another thing, and they are well arranged and well aligned. So that would tick for organizing my ideas and format and paragraphing. Another thing I can naturally tick here is connectors and transitions. So if I am writing a whole bunch of rubbish again, just adding few transition words and connectors just makes my work a lot more beautiful, a lot more readable, and I just ticked one factor in the marking criteria standard. Something else I can naturally get is spelling. Even if I'm bad at spelling, I use the spell check to make sure all my spellings are correct so I'm not losing point aimlessly because of careless mistakes. Another thing I can try to tick is the tone to make sure my greeting, my sign off, my expressions I use throughout my response matches the scoring performance standard. So, even if I really struggle to come up with ideas, I have naturally ticked this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. You see? Now, the beautiful thing about the Celpip test is that the raters rate each factor separately. So if my idea is really trash, let's assume I don't have intelligent ideas, it's really, really trash. I'm not going to lose points under the content and coherence. It's not going to affect the other part. If I use a variety of words, my vocabulary is correct, sentence structure, completeness, my word count is okay, I'll get the point for those parts. I am only going to lose points under the parts that I struggle. So the goal is to aim to get all of them correct. But if I'm not able to tick every single thing, at least get some right. Get most of them right. And if you ever forget, you can always check the Celpip scoring performance standard on the Celpip website to check the questions that the raters are asking each time they are rating your work. So with these marking or writing performance standards, you can be very confident that you'll get a high score if you aim to tick most of the boxes in this scoring or writing performance standard. If you need more clarification on any part of it or you've got further questions, feel free to ask. Just send us a message or a DM and we are more than excited to answer your questions. Now, let's move on to the writing task 1.